Okay. Hello everyone, and welcome to Pokeworld broadcast. I am Kristen, and joining me today are guests from Permanent DAO and Hungarian DAO and Gem DAO. And we also sent invitations to Cool DAO and Trusty DAO, but unfortunately they were not able to join us this time due to scheduling conflicts. Our topic today is what makes a DAO. The court 4DV just kicked off about a week ago. And as we started reviewing proposals, we came across some some really challenging decisions, which naturally led us to reflect on what DAOs are truly about. So we will be diving into the vision behind a DAO and how it actually works and how people can join and how we can strive for true collective wisdom and rather than falling into ground thinking. We will also explore how DAOs can stay true to the idea of common good and more. I think Polkadot OpenGov is the world's largest DAO, and as part of it, we often encounter issues that don't exist in other ecosystems. But we believe these challenges are also valuable opportunities to reflect, to evolve, and to improve both on system and the philosophies. To begin with, I'd love to invite each of our guests to briefly introduce yourself. How about we start from William?
Hey, great to meet everybody. I think I've been on this stream once before, so you may remember me from that. But
Yes.
I entered the ecosystem a few years ago as I became a member of Talisman, one of the main wallets in the ecosystem. Uh,
Mhm.
and I spent about 2 years at Talisman. Last summer, I became one of the on-chain head ambassadors. Uh, and currently, I work at Open and so we provide contract standards that are going to be very heavily used in the upcoming Polkadot Hub launch. And I am a member of Permanence DAO.
Mm. Okay, welcome, William. And now let's welcome Sarat.
Yes, my name is Sarab Nayogi. I am part of a small group called Colorful Notion. We are one of maybe 30 some Jam implementers. I started Colorful Notion a couple of years ago, working in crypto in a Polkadot centric way. We have done a lot of indexing of pretty much most of the Polkadot parachains and the system chains and the relay chain. And we got interested in Jam pretty much a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, since we started releasing more FCs. And we started implementing Jam last summer, seriously, probably really seriously in the fall. And there is a pretty rich ecosystem of maybe 30-something teams. When we heard about the cohort 4 possibility, we said, oh, we pretty much have a Jam community forming from the implementers, and we put together an application to develop a Jam implementers DAO, and composed of a lot of us, because of us and maybe a dozen or so other implementers, and it's gotten up to like 15 members so far. So we're actively implementing Jam, and pretty much our membership is all Jam based.
Okay, cool. 15 or 15 members.
15, 5, 1 5, yes.
Okay, cool. And last but not least, let's welcome Spectra.
Hi guys, I'm Spectra. I'm part of the Hungarian Polkadot DAO. It's a second cohort as a DVs. We're from obviously Hungary. I have been involved in Polkadot for about a year now. I previously worked for Aragon. They do a tech stack to create and manage your DAOs online. So that was a good experience. And that's it. We mainly do like community building. In our PIF application, we did like sort of like Eastern European countries, communities coming together. We had some meets in Hungary, and we had a meet in Warsaw, and we basically hoping to continue.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's dive right in. And, each of our guests today represents a different DAO. And interestingly, you all seem to wear multiple hats, both within and beyond your DAO roles. So we are curious, how did your DAOs get started, and what was the vision behind them? How about we start? Sorry.
Saurabh, yeah,
Sorry.
sure. So
Sorry.
all of us, right now, our membership is purely implementers. Jam, if you haven't heard of it, is the next generation of Polkadot technology. Very clear, led by the founder himself. So if I can't imagine anybody in the ecosystem not having heard about it yet. But it is basically the next generation protocol for trustless supercomputing, and it's been out for a year. The Jam gray paper. We are all the members basically are teams that are implementing Jam. It's not that everybody can join, only implementers can join at present. Perhaps we could have tool builders and other kinds of entities. So if to join our membership, you have to be an implementer and register on chain and so forth. But we're all Jam focused, so we're all engineers. We're not regionally focused. The membership comes from all over the world. And that's kind of forms our core. To join our membership, you have to basically register with the Web3 Foundation technically on a Jam chain website, and submit an extrinsic to be a member, and basically add yourself in a pull request to a Jam Docs website that is managed by the Jam implementers.
Wow, cool. So you are all technical guys. So yeah, so I prefer reviewing only the technical proposals.
No, that would be a good guess, but we're all engineers, but we're many of us are kind of founder type people, but as engineers and product guys and so forth, and some of us have, and then the spectrum of kinds of people range from never participated in OpenGov to actively been voters and prior to the formation of this. And so depending on where people are on the spectrum, people are learning the first thing, like what's going on with these tracks, to they actually know everything everything about it, and are excited or intimidated and have all these feelings from what they've done before. So everybody in the DAO is actively voting on every proposal, just as every other DV would, and there's no restrictions and so far as we've seen, everybody's pretty much voting on both technical and non-technical proposals.
Wow, cool. And yeah, how about you, Spectra? And how did your DAOs get started, and what was the vision behind them?
So we started about 4 years ago now, when Six got involved with Polkadot, and he started doing hackathons and meetups in Budapest. That's been taken over by Vic, and I think we are the longest running continuous meetups in Polkadot, maybe, and only a few other cities have bigger regular meetups. We usually have about 30-40 people monthly. Actually, there is one in Budapest today, tonight. It's in the Corvin University, and it's usually quite good. So that's how the people kind of got together. And then a few of us thought that we could take it more seriously. The basic vision was to kind of spread Web3 values in Hungary, in Hungarian, because it's still a big barrier of entry for people not speaking English, basically. So we have regular news, weekly news, and discussing all things Polkadot and Web3 related in our Telegram group. And that's what we try to do at the meetups as well, kind of keep up with what's happening within the ecosystem.
Okay, cool. And you just started from the community and then wanna go further into the community. That's why you established the DAO. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, depending on what you define what a DAO is, you know, I think any group of people can call themselves a DAO because, I mean, what is a DAO? So, yeah, we just started to call ourselves a DAO. But in terms of tools, essentially, it's just a multisig. And we have an Ocean page. And the manifesto, well, that's a different story. But in terms of on-chain tools, it's essentially a multisig.
yeah, cool. Yeah, it's a really different definitions about DAO, but we will touch on it later. So, William, so how about permanent DAO? How did you guys started it, and what's the vision behind?
Yeah, Permanent Style started, I think, just over 6 months ago, so in the fall of
Oh,
last year.
mhm,
And it's actually made up of quite a lot of long-standing contributors in the Polkadot ecosystem.
mhm,
So a number of members are validators, and they've run kind of the infrastructure behind Polkadot for quite a while.
mhm,
Quite a few of the members are actually former DVs, individual DVs, myself included.
mhm,
But you know that's how I got to know, or initially, a few of the other members.
mhm,
And you know, many are part of businesses in the ecosystem, or have been kind of agents and doing various things. And so we came together because we really thought that you know, governance is at a really early stage in Polkadot, right? It's so important to the future of the network, and you know how decisions are made, and you know how the network is secured and how it evolves. But there's so few token holders voting, right? Like on
mhm,
proposals, maybe there's like 1% or a few percent of tokens voting, and DV has improved that. But we really do agree with the view that you know, the way to get better participation is for DAOs to proliferate, and they can help people, you know, find a group to belong to, find a group to make decisions with, to you know, interact with others. And so what we wanted to do was to create a model for a group that comes together and that really brings governance forward. And what
mhm,
that means is to make decision making better, make it more transparent, make sure that we interact with proposers in a professional way, in a, you know, consistent way, that we give a lot of feedback, that we help newcomers come into the ecosystem.
mhm,
And you know, we thought that like you know, the best way that we can do that is set an example by how we behave, and you know, how we design ourselves to work. And hopefully that will encourage, you know, more people to come in, more people to feel comfortable in Polkadot, uh,
mhm,
and you know, really kind of upgrade, let's say, the social layer. That, you know, that is where, you know, the human layer, where people interact and form a bond with Polkadot. So yeah, we came together kind of because yeah, we wanted to you know, create that better community. And
mhm.
you know, we thought we could do that kind of working together, but also kind of being transparent, and trying to be a role model.
Yeah, I can agree more with you. That's why we bring up this topic. We wanna make our community more professional and how to make it efficient and professional. That's how it. So and just as Spectra just mentioned that uh, it is important that it it's all about how you define what is a DAO. And William also mentioned that we want to make our community professional, so more professional. So that's why we make the DAO. And you know, but in practice, how to make a DAO, transparency and decentralized, and it's not just ideal. We have to make it actually lived out. So how does the process look like to make sure those values on just ideals? So how about let's start from Spectra.
A DAO doesn't necessarily have to be transparent. Depending on what the DAO members do, it doesn't necessarily need to be transparent.
Really?
Yes. Well, why? Because if a DAO is doing a for-profit business and they want to have business secrets, they don't have to share it. So yeah, not necessarily, but obviously every on-chain action is transparent. Anyway, now in terms of our DAO and in terms of Polkadot, regarding the referenda, we basically have a weekly meeting where we discuss all referenda, and then our Notion page where we have the referenda registered, how we voted, the rationale, and pretty much everything we do with referenda is public. So, and every comment we make on OpenGov, we reference it. That if you want to have a look at it, this is how you can follow. So we did have people who actually follow it and basically try to get in touch with us when they saw that the recommendation for a nay vote, or when in fact we have made the nay vote, or the aye vote, whichever. It's our system is somewhat different from the others, as we understand, and we also understand that it only works as long as we don't grow too big. Once we grow probably over 10, 12, maybe 15 members, then we do have to choose another internal discussion and voting mechanism. But at the minute, it is basically we try to get full consensus. So if the way it works is that someone evaluates the proposal, and the rest of the member, and then we discuss it, and then the rest of the members, they can also obviously have a look and look it up, and then have an opinion, and then basically we discuss it, and then we either have a full consensus on the recommended vote, or we abstain. So it's either a full consensus on the recommended aye or the recommended nay. If anybody who cannot be, who basically you can be against it initially, but if you can be convinced, then you get on the other side and there's full consensus. If you say, no, absolutely no, I do not agree, and you have valid reasons, then there's no consensus within the DAO, and then it's an abstain.
Okay. Is there a tool, or you just make the consensus by just meetings, or
Well, meetings, and then we record it in Notion. Yes.
okay,
So anyone who's present at the meetings, that's the other thing, that just because you're part of the DAO, your absence cannot hinder the works of the DAO. So basically, if you're not present at the meetings, then your voice is not important. So anyone who's present and as long as it's over the threshold, I at the moment it's 7 out of 4. We used to be 3 out of 5, but we just welcomed 2 new members. So now it's 4 out of 7 members. As long as the 4 members present, then proceedings go ahead.
Okay, cool. And Spectrum mentioned that teams over 10 is hard to manage. There would be different stories, and Gemtor have a 15 members. So how do you make decisions internally, and how does the process look like?
So so it's very new for almost every one of us. We had a major decision in the beginning. Should we make everybody's individual votes public or private? And so the vote was not clear, but it was like 3/4 of us said, let's have our individual votes private, but then share publicly the aggregate view. And then so it was different from what Permanence DAO did or does, where every individual member's comment and vote is public via Subsquare. So there was a tool choice that we said, should we use something like Subsquare, or should we use something like a Discord setup, of which KusDAO and Chaos DAO, use the same thing in, I guess, different ways. So we ended up in the Jam DAO using the Chaos DAO bot. So we are very grateful to the open tools that were there rather than Subsquare. Maybe there'll be a day where we go back to the other model, but the advantage of us going that route is that if any member wants to say something privately, which is very common, if they want to say, oh, here actually there was some issues, I had some problem with this, they can do so without concern about how it makes other people, how the proposer, might, have pulled back. So there's a lot of, kind of feelings that emerge when you say no to somebody. And at least that enables a higher degree of openness, which is a very weird thing. It's like, well, if you're less transparent, then you can be more honest. So that's kind of what part of the reason why we went down the private route, keep your votes private, but we now take all of the comments that everybody has and aggregate them, and basically post them into Subsquare / Poco Assembly, and we just started doing that this week, and we're using generative AI, ChatGPT like mechanisms to anonymize the comments in a way that protects the individual members from, kind of being attacked or whatnot, and that has been a serious concern, given some actions of a couple of people out there who make a lot of noise against some of the members historically.
Yes, yes. It's reasonable. Sometimes keep some kind of a privacy for the memberships of DAOs. And for the permanent DAO, I was impressed by their process for voting, and I think everyone can vote, and the result is totally transparent to the community, and then you take actions on chain, right? So I'm really curious, what tools are you using, and how do you make the decisions, how the process goes?
Definitely. So,
Mhm.
yeah, we again, I think DAOs can be set up in many different ways. Like nobody knows the best way, and so it's really up to the participants to figure out what's comfortable for them to work together and be effective. Yeah, it is a very interesting thing about Permanence DAO that we decided to be. We try to be very transparent and decentralized by default, right?
Mhm.
So if you think about decentralized, we're currently about 10 people, so it's not too big, but maybe on the decentralized side, it's really just about voting for any changes of DAO policy. So like we have kind of like improvement proposals. So if somebody wants to change the thresholds for voting or the conflict of interest policy, then it will be put up for a vote to the group, and everybody can weigh in. And in terms of how we run, yeah, we could have started off and used the Chaos DAO that bot that was available, but we decided, hey, since it's so early and there's so many more things that we can do in governance, why don't we try to iterate and build our own system that kind of
Mhm.
fulfills the ideas that we're thinking, right?
Mhm.
And really to promote transparency, to promote kind of openness. So what we did is, we took the Subsquare voting dashboard. That's actually a product that anybody can use,
Yes.
and we started using it to put up internal proposals as well as every vote. So every OpenGov vote will just, be automatically imported into our Subsquare voting dashboard, and
Mhm.
then members can weigh in. Now, the interesting thing about the Subsquare voting dashboard is that it really is based on wallet signatures. So the same cryptography for your keys, right? So every comment that you make and every vote that you make, even though I think it's not directly on chain right now, at least the authenticity will be established because it's signed by key. So we thought, hey, that's a very Web3 way that we want to do things, and so it's based there. We also have a bot in the background that will go and aggregate, calculate different thresholds. So depending on whether it's big spender or medium spender, we will
Mhm.
have a quorum threshold, so a number of people that need to like vote in order for this to go through, as well as a sliding scale of how many people need to say yes. For like a big spender, more people need to say yes. For a small spender, less number of people need to say yes. So that's all automated kind of into the rule set and done by technology. Uh, so we have those two systems that work together to kind of post our votes on chain and collate them. And so I think it's going to keep evolving, right? It's not easy to kind of make this
Mhm.
from scratch. And when we have a new idea or we want to update it, we kind of have to code a new thing. But we think it's worth it because, we want to promote, just innovation and governance, the ability to add more technology in, because like that's kind of what Polkadot is. And that's what, blockchain is the ability to outsource a lot of processes and decision making to code, or at least the tedious parts of it that
Oh,
enable us to kind of make decisions in a new way. In
oh,
terms
okay.
of consensus, we have a little bit of different model than Hungary. Um,
Mhm.
but actually, we don't try to achieve consensus in terms of the view. We try to encourage everybody to feel comfortable to express their own view, right?
Mhm.
Because everybody has their own kind of opinion, their own experience, and the dialogue that comes from hearing everybody. Sometimes you'll change because of other people, but we really try to avoid, like, I don't know, kind of getting everybody on to vote like the same way, because we want to promote like different viewpoints and show and be okay like with everybody sharing their own experience and voting according to that conviction.
What if there's a proposal that cannot make a consensus? Like 50 versus 50.
Yeah, if the quorum is not met, or if the threshold for a yes is not met, then I think either we will vote no or we'll
Mhm.
abstain, right? And there's different rules for like all of the different types of voting. So yeah, either it'll be a yes, no, or abstain. And if the threshold is not there, then yeah, it could be no or abstain.
Okay, cool. And there are a lot of community members, and they want to join the DAO to make contributions if they don't have ability to establish a DAO. So, and as you guys mentioned, the more people, the harder to manage it. So, do you have plans to attract new people to join your DAOs, or is there a case that might somebody be asked to leave the DAO? So how about William can kick it off?
Yeah, I think both are possible. So, as I said, we're about 10 members right now, and a lot. We've wanted to onboard more members, but because we just got DV and we're architecting all of these systems, it's been a little bit slow to onboard new members. But actually, our design is to have a split between core members, right? Those are the members that are there today and what we call community members, right? So core members will be ones that there's a higher requirement for voting, giving feedback all the time. It's a little bit more time intensive. And community members is more open and participate in the discussion and still vote, but maybe you don't have to vote as often or you don't have as much time. And so we're going to start onboarding community members quite soon. And we envision eventually a split of something like 55% and 45%, I think, where, in terms of the weight, how we weight the two groups. So yeah, that will be starting quite soon, I believe. And so yeah, we plan to do that. Did you ask one more question that I
Yeah,
forgot?
yeah. What cases might someone be asked to leave the DAO?
Yeah, it's definitely possible to ask somebody to leave the DAO. I think, definitely to leave a core membership. Like we pride ourselves on voting and leaving feedback in at an individual level. So I think the numbers are something like 70 or 80% of all the votes have individual feedback per person, right? So I think if you can't, but it takes a lot of work to evaluate to the point where you're willing to leave public feedback on why you made a decision. So I think if you can't quite, if that's too time consuming, then probably it's better to step down to a community membership or to leave. Um, but yeah, that's yeah, we have both joining and leaving.
Yeah, cool. And how about Spectra? And it seems like your DAO members are solid members. So do you welcome new members, or how do you ask somebody to leave?
Well, so basically, we're on the kind of idea that we don't need to grow aggressively. So we are very careful as to who can join the DAO. It's absolutely possible. And the only requirement is that you're active. So at the moment, according to our manifesto, we also have like a core membership, which is the DAO, i.e. the multi-sig members, and the community, which is the people at the meets and the Telegram group and everything. So if anybody feels that they want to contribute more, then they have to basically attend 10 out of 12 meetings in a 3-month period, i.e. a quarter. And then once they familiarize themselves with how we work, how we discuss proposals, how we do other projects, because being a DV is just one of our projects. We do other stuff as well. So once they okay with everything and they can align and they can see, okay, guys, so I can take this, I can lead that, I can do the others, then we can consider. And the basically at the moment, since on Polkadot that is the only way, we would expand the multisig and get them into the multisig. In terms of leaving the DAO, obviously we cannot have anybody in the DAO unless they want to be in. And sending someone away, that's just a social contract. So basically, if someone is not not active enough, I don't know, does something that doesn't reflect well on the DAO or on the Hungarian community, then it's a discussion then that we'll have internally, and then the end of it is basically the same, that they're going to be out of the multisig.
Yeah, cool. And how about Sarah? You know, Nick, there are. I know the entry condition of a jump doll is you have to be an engineer, and
So as an engineer, you should be implementing Jam. Most of us have seen everyone else interact in the gray paper chat room, so you cannot effectively Sybil attack us by having a lot of random without somebody knowing. So in addition to registering with the as a Jam client builder, so in terms of leaving, we have set up a code of conduct, largely modeled after Permanence DAO. Very small modifications, mostly common sense. And I think most of us are quite civil, quite civil, very polite people. But according to our code of conduct, if you violate it in a way that is obvious to other members, the DAO can vote you out. And it would be for kind of like lack of politeness in a common sense way. But there's a formal process. We did have two early members say we don't have enough time to participate, and they said, "How do we how do we leave technically, given that we submitted a join on chain?" And yes, we did encounter that, and it's a very polite process. It's not a drama-filled process. I think for us, we're thinking exactly thinking about what exactly the temporal commitments are. Like if somebody joins, are they required to vote on everything? And we haven't really said, oh, if you don't vote at all, you are going to have to leave. So I think our consensus so far, softly, not in a formal process, is that it's a completely voluntary process, and you wouldn't be asked to leave if you don't vote, because we have other things that we can come together on, like getting in the toaster and building tools for Jam and other things. So our DAO is not gonna have necessarily a strict requirement to implement Jam long term. Right now it's implementer focused, but it could be tool builders and ambassadors and other kinds of things that are just like the mother Polkadot origin that we come from.
What
yeah,
if you don't make it to milestone 1? Can you be
Good question.
removed?
Yeah, I mean, I think as with most democracies, even in the small or large, we can ratify the rules of how the DAO membership is formed and the requirements, and it would be a evolving thing, just like everything else. So we would imagine that as teams get rewarded or not rewarded for M1, M2, it's a temporal process, and it's very clear, like Jam is going to be the future of Polkadot. So as Jam actually gets deployed, and we go beyond implementation to execution, that the membership criteria can evolve, and that's what's cool about DAOs. DAOs can sort of like move in in a standard way, as with every democracy, to redefine how people add and remove themselves. And we haven't technically ratified our code of conduct, but we hope that that too will actually evolve as we learn how to behave, as we would expect for any democracy.
yes. The reason I ask, how to ask people to leave is that I observed that there are some, toxic phenomenon sometimes bring up by some people. I was wondering if it's really hard for us to move the toxic people if there's no such a systematic, but but as but it is obvious that it all depends how you define what is toxic phenomenon. So it's hard to say. But we have to take this into consideration, and maybe we can evolve in the future. And now we will talk about some concrete topics. All DAOs in the Polkadot ecosystem ultimately feed into world's largest DAO, OpenGov. A major part of work now is reviewing and voting on proposals. I've observed a kind of, bandwagon effect in way people vote. Many seem to follow the crowd instead of making independent judgment. I also observed that hundreds of people vote against, or yes, they participate in the voting, yet only a few of them actually read the proposals in detail. So that makes us wonder, are DAOs truly a reflection of a collective wisdom, or are we sometimes just seeking collective guesswork? What's your take on this? How about we start from Saurabh?
So I cannot speak for the whole of the DAO. This is just me as an individual. But so I agree. There's many bandwagon effects. Some of us don't know how to think about certain things, and we do look to others for information and advice. That's just part of being human. When in what I've seen within our like 2 weeks of running here, we are in fact looking at each other's data and say, oh, you had this experience with such and such, and we look to others for cues, and I think that's very normal, and you expect that in every democracy. So I don't think there's any escaping the sort of like, I'll vote, that way, and the way that such and such votes, because they actually have some relevant experience. So we are actually seeing many of us influenced within the DAO by other sort of leaders who have experience, and then actually sometimes changing it. And so if we have a superficial judgment going one way, and then we find some information, we actually change our votes. And we've seen many cases just within the last, I don't know, 24 or so refs that we have taken a look at. The superficialness dimension is a serious issue. And I think a lot of, I wouldn't be surprised if many of the members across in our DAO and as well others don't look beyond the summary descriptions into the in-depth proposals. I don't believe that's the case for all of for everyone. There's a lot of people who look very seriously. I think the cases where there's a bigger budget, as opposed to small tipper or whatever, the bigger budget items where there's several $100,000 or $1 million, which are kind of not clear what the value is. We are seeing very good comments from at least half of us, looking at the ones which are not clear. Is this a good value or not? And the more quality commenting we see from some of our members, I think a lot of others kind of tend to follow and say, oh yeah, I'm going to look at that. But it's very difficult and time consuming to spend the level of to go spend an hour on these proposals, and I think that is tricky. So we're always going to have to deal with some kind of like superficial weighing machine, especially within our group, because we're so busy doing normal engineering. So it is difficult, and it is a serious concern.
Yes. I agree with you, because I am reviewing proposals, and especially when it comes to the technical proposals, it takes me more than 3 hours to understand everything. So could be hard for the voters, and especially as DVs, we are part-time job, but it's really hard to make decisions. So how about others people's take on this? How do you solve these problems?
Yes, it's an interesting question, because I think I said it in the DV call that it's a lot more work if you want to do it properly that you would kind of expect in the beginning. And that's how we kind of differ from the other DVs, where not only we give our names to the individual votes, but it's in the end, it's always a consensus. But basically, whoever evaluates the proposal, um, that person needs to get into it like deep, and then explain it to the others. So
Oh,
the others can go deep into it as well, and they can. But I think it's unrealistic to expect everybody in every DAO to go into every single proposal and deep dive it. Not just because of the lack of time, but also the lack of expertise. So, we do have a number of external experts that we ask their opinions on certain proposals. And then if we really either can come to a consensus, or we feel that it's not really our expertise, that we're just going to abstain, because it's there's no point voting, especially with 6 million dots, if we're not absolutely sure that it's an I or an A. So yeah, that's and also with the DV, being a DV, you kind of have to vote in OpenGov, but as a Polkadot DAO or a sub DAO of the big DAO, it may not be your priority, or even you may not even feel as a group that you need to participate. It would be preferential. It would be good if everybody felt like that, and we feel like all small communities need to get their voices heard. But it could be overwhelming, and it's not that easy. And that's why we did, in our PIF application, we did these tools for smaller communities to make it easier for them to start organizing and start participating, no matter how, even if they vote with one dot. It's the participation that counts. But yes, so voting apathy is a thing in all DAOs, and you need to incentivize people, basically.
yeah.
Yeah,
Into
I think
okay.
on my side, it's I also see the superficial vote issue, right? Sometimes, and I'm in some groups that use the voting bot, and sometimes I think, maybe it's too easy to just be able to click a yes or no button and then feel like you voted. Because when I was an individual DV, right, I was
Mhm,
probably spending 4 to 8 hours a day just going over proposals, understanding the implications, due diligencing with other people, and
mhm,
that's what it really takes, like to make a very well considered decision. But I think like the question that you ask here is actually a more general question about how do we make decisions, right? As
mhm,
groups or as humans, right? It happens in businesses. It happens in any kind of group where it's driven by groupthink, or you're influenced by the first person who speaks up. You're influenced by the loudest person in the room, right? Like that's how marketing works. That's how commercial works. That's how they convince you to buy things, because we're driven by kind of psychological biases that cause us to
mhm,
misinterpret things. So ultimately, I like maybe my advice for everybody is just to understand decision making a little bit better. What are the cognitive biases that cause you to interpret information different
mhm,
ways? And think about that when you read
mhm,
proposals or you listen to discussions, because ultimately, like this kind of decision making, like we're faced with it all day in our own lives and businesses. And, it's not different here. Like to make a good decision or good judgment, we have to be able to consider information and try to make the best thing. One more point to add on is actually, um, I think for many proposals, there is not a clear defined yes or no answer. Like for many,
mhm,
many proposals, from some perspective, you can argue this is actually a good thing. right? It might be a good thing for Polkadot Hub. It might be a good thing for Polkadot Cloud. It might be a good thing for Gem. It might be a good thing for open source. It might be a good thing for a small part of the community. So, you know, it's also maybe a mistake to be too black and white on
Mm,
proposals, right?
yes.
Because it really depends on not is this right or wrong, but what is the strategy that we're going for as a DAO? And
Mm,
that's first of all not agreed upon, right, universally. But it's more, does this proposal like get us towards that outcome that we want, right, in the best way, rather than is it just good or bad?
mm,
Sorry, can I just say that yes, but the ultimate um, goal is to whether a proposal benefits the ecosystem
mm,
one way or the other, technically or marketing or whatever. But that's the end goal is for the proposals to benefit the ecosystem.
mm. Yeah, there are different angles that uh, a proposal can benefit to the ecosystem, but there are also different opinions on these angles. This lead us to the next topic, uh, which is we are now seeing more proposals from projects that struggle to raise funds elsewhere, uh, struggle to raise funds elsewhere, or don't have enough users to be self-sustaining, and that put us in a tough spot. Should we fund unprofitable projects, or only the ones that were not profit driven to begin with? And because Gavin once mentioned that OpenGov was meant to support common good and non-profit initiatives, but when I come across some proposals, and it is true that they don't make profit and they are not uh, common sense, code common sense. They are just don't have so much users, and this is not their own problems. The whole ecosystem or the whole industry are on the deep. That's why. And should we funding them to to help them to live longer, to for a better opportunity in the future, or we should not support them because they're not common good projects, and they should seek funding from investor or something. So who wanna go first? How about William?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult question. And I think if I think back, Gov 1 with the council was much more focused on common good, right?
Mhm,
Like there was a pretty strong open source need, and they were really resisting going into kind of private business funding or what may be akin to like startup capital or seed funding,
mhm,
which you see quite a bit in OpenGov. Um, I don't, I think the balance really, and you have to take multiple perspectives in, right? Like the Polkadot ecosystem in general, it's very hard to attract VC funding, right? So many,
mhm,
uh, parachain builders, they had to go to, leave Polkadot because just it was unfundable for,
mhm.
market reasons. And so
Yeah.
if that's really the case, then, should the Treasury at least support to some degree, right? Businesses that are bringing users and transactions or that
Mhm,
have a promise to.
mhm,
I guess I'm a little bit split. Like lately, I want to go back to the idea of common good open source much more than before. So
mhm,
I feel like that's really what Polkadot should be doing. That is a long term, that's part of the proper long term view of Polkadot. So I lean a little bit that way. But I also kind of acknowledge that we do need to catalyze an ecosystem, right? If I think about what the short term goals are for this year for Polkadot Hub, it is to make Polkadot Hub a successful L1. And when you think about an ecosystem, when you think about L1, you have to think about network effects, right? Like network effects of users, liquidity, and projects. So I do think that we need to do what it takes and use the resources of the treasury to make this year's launch successful because it pays forward in future years. It doesn't mean that we should just, fund large amounts to kind of speculative projects and but it means we should figure out how to create the right environment where builders can thrive, they can find success. We kind of get more builders to come in because of that success, because of the users and liquidity. So, yeah, I'm a little bit in between, but yeah, lately moving a little bit more in thinking towards the common good.
Yeah, but my concern is that usually, now currently in Polkadot ecosystem, the common good project or proposals, they are always from parity or from uh, yeah, this kind of proposals. They are not there. It's very easy for them to get funding from OpenGov, but for other projects, it's not very easy. But they are really need some funding to survive. At this point, what would you choose?
I mean, I think it's a more complex thing that we need to set up, right? I mean, I think Polkadot is kind of an infrastructure layer, and it's not, in some way, it's not Polkadot's direct job to choose which business is going to win or not, and
Mm-hmm,
to directly like make a consumer facing product. It's
mm-hmm,
Polkadot's job to create an environment that builders can come and they can compete in the market. And it's the builder's responsibility to go get product market fit and bring users on. So I guess when I think about that, the continuum, it's how can we spend treasury funds to make the environment right? Maybe it does require some kind of grant or initial liquidity or funding to bring them on.
mm-hmm,
But we need to, bring them on to compete in the market and find success as an individual project rather than
mm-hmm.
sort of, I don't know, funding a whole, I don't know, maybe year worth or 2 years worth of runway. But we need to balance that in a way where we bring more builders on rather than sort of pick winners and losers. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. And also, I believe that we should make the funding resource more various. Now people can get funding from Web3 Foundation and from OpenGov. If we have some native Polkadot VCs growing bigger, and maybe it's more easier for projects to get funding uh, from VCs, from our Polkadot focused VCs. So I think that's gonna be a solution to be considered. So
Want to speak
let's.
up on this point. So there's a business model of core time, and I think it's really important for us to align Polkadot's business model, which is to buy a certain amount of cores in a certain number of regions, and it's very clear that the future of Polkadot is we have to use these cores. The structure of what Polkadot will become is going to be, it'll be 341 cores. A serious number will be for parachains. That's the historical present and past. But there's also going to be a huge opportunity to do trustless operating systems and then applications that really take advantage, not in a parachain centric way, but in a core VM and core play centric way. It's going to take a couple of years for this evolution coming straight from the founder with the great paper and jam architecture to develop these very, very powerful innovations. And to speak to your point of what common good projects should be funded, it's going to be like, well, right now you can't go around selling trustless operating systems
Uh-huh.
and building it, or building the first few applications that use core VM and core play. So it has to, for the foreseeable future, maybe 2-3 years, there is going to have to be a kind of an R&D lab type mentality where you have to take these babies, who cannot stand on their own, and really give them the kind of support that is very much a common good, but it cannot stay that way forever. So there's a judgment call, just like parents when they have their child live with them for as a for a while, a judgment call. Eventually they grow up and they go off and become fully functioning adults. Jam's core time buyers are going to have to sort of be weaned, because they're not going to have a lot of users in the beginning, or even to justify it. And it's important for everybody in the community to recognize that you don't bring in infants into the world and say, good luck, go walk on your own. They need a form of support and parenting. And I think strategically, what William is suggesting is that we have a current focus this year on certain initiatives, like this Polkadot app and the Polkadot hub, and then going forward, it's going to be pretty much Jam centric. And what Polkadot has chosen is a core time based business model, and it's important for ultimately things to relate back to that core business model that increase demand for cores by having people buy their reserve their core times and cores with dot. And I think that this transformation and metamorphosis from the parachain present into the core centric future with this super awesome trustless supercomputer, we're going to have a lot more deep thinking about what is a worthy common good sort of project, and which ones are really about the mission of using and expanding the use cases of trustless supercomputing. So
Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Now I get more clear concept of what is the common sense. Is sometimes is in some degree it means that you cannot let an infant person walking, and you have to help it grow to an functional project or functional person, then can let it go. Okay, cool. Thank you. And the last, let's wrap up our conversation by the last topic. What kind of projects or directions are you mostly excited to support? And in your view, what kind of teams or proposals does the Polkadot ecosystem need the most right now? And uh, I think Saurabh already mentioned just now, what kind of project you think is right for the Pocket ecosystem. So, do you have something to add? Dude?
So I mean, obviously, we haven't seen many Jam-centric proposals, but I think there will be many Asset Hub or Polkadot Hub centric proposals, and I think that's strategically important to increase core time demand. And so that's there. I've been very interested to see how our members do support marketing proposals, and so far we haven't we haven't gotten many eyes on anything related to marketing and even generally business development yet. So I think that we're looking to understand ourselves as a DAO how non-engineering type proposals can accrue value to the Polkadot DAO, and we're eager to learn how as a group we can shape those in shape the business development and marketing in a Jam centric or Asset Hub centric way going forward. So we're excited to see how the strategy of Asset Hub plus Jam and increasing parachain adoption relates directly back to the proposals that we vote on.
Okay, I think Pokeworld stay the opposite position with you guys, because we knows how to marketing, but we don't know technical stuff. We always want to learn more about tech, and to understand, what kind of tech this ecosystem is need most or something. Okay, that's funny. How about Spectra?
Yeah, so we kind of think about the opposite way as well. So Polkadot is tech heavy as it is, and we do need to concentrate on marketing and BD like heavily, because we can have the best tech in the world if no one's using it, then it's basically not good. And back to the previous question, just for a second, we wouldn't mind supporting for-profit um, proposals from the Treasury, as long as it brings value to the ecosystem. And William said, it's quite complex as to what is a value and what is not a value. But maybe the Treasury can act as a VC, that if it's a for-profit proposal, then the Treasury would get something back if it's successful. But basically, we do need to concentrate on business development heavily, and marketing. Maybe not outreach, and maybe not public marketing, more for business marketing. But yeah, definitely. So we would like competing marketing and business development proposals.
Mhm. Okay, but at this point, I have something to add regarding standing on the VC point to reviewing the proposal. I think it's totally different. VCs are seeking for profit, but OpenGov is seeking for the long-term growing of this system. I think it's different angle. From my experience, when yeah, because as Saurabh just mentioned, uh, some tech are very on the infrastructure level. It takes many years to finish, and there's no profit at all. So if we stand on the VC's point of view, it's hard to funding. Or sometimes this project is already functional, but at this stage they come across some very difficulty. They just need some money to survive, and if we stand on the VC's point of view, we will pass on this kind of proposals. This is my concerns. This is the the issues I come across. Okay, so William.
Yeah, I'll just add in my thought here. I actually think my feeling is that we're heavily underweighting um, the Treasury spending money on making the Polkadot Hub launch a success. If you think about any other L1 launch, right? Think about the L1s that have launched in the past year, and think about what kind of projects are available on day one, right? It's things for people to do, things for people to use. I don't know if it's games or DeFi or whatnot. And the funds of that L1 are used to encourage the builders to release things on day one. And so that there's a place for people to come, there's a place for liquidity to flow. And
Mhm.
so we're kind of already starting a little bit behind, because it's not like a new token that can speculatively increase. It has a long history, right? And so maybe a little bit harder to go up. But I think that's what we can use the treasury for. So I'd love to see proposals that focus on bringing in builders, create the right environment from them, pulling the best builders from other ecosystems, or encouraging a large swath of builders to come in, because I think that's where the success of Polkadot Hub will come from, in the launch as it moves on, is that, you know, people are constantly coming in. It's a place to release stuff. There's innovative things happening. And so, yeah, whatever we can do to create that environment, yeah, I think it's a blind spot right now.
I have a question for you, William, as well. I think the strategic direction you're advocating with Asset Hub is a powerful idea. I don't see yet us as DVs, the sixers of us, collaborating our thought process together on trying to guide. And I don't want to encourage any kind of groupthink among the 6 DVs that are there. But how do you think we could collectively, as decentralized voices, come together and align our thought process a little bit more in a coherent way, in strategic directions, like let's support Asset Hub better, as well as other L1s at present or historically have in the past. What do you think we should do, since you're a multi?
I mean, happy to collaborate and talk, and we have our chat. I think actually this is kind of a bigger issue, right? Because the problem with DV is that you can't really set the direction of where things are going because you're spending all of your time evaluating the proposals that come in, right? So you're at the tail end of looking at like the things that come in, and yes, you can vote things, yes or no, and that might encourage, right, things to move in a certain direction, but that's quite slow, right? I think the conversation, I mean, happy to collaborate and figure out what this is, but the conversation is really at the strategy level of, the DAO, and how does that actually get alignment and move forward, right? Because that's really the front edge of what then makes it into the proposal process, and then what we can vote on. So yeah, it's been a difficulty that I I guess I recognize since the last term as DV, is that you're really at the end of this long string of things. So it's very hard to influence the beginning.
Do you think like you have a rough blueprint of the strategy? It's Asset Hub now, Jam in the future. Do you think there should be a high level coordination from the Web3 Foundation saying here is the strategy, or should should it be a bottoms up process where we collaborate a weekly basis on calls like this, and how we could come to consensus between in a cross DV way on how to reason about, say, liquidity on Asset Hub, or watching over metrics on Asset Hub being one of the key initiatives of this year. Like, is that not
I
possible? Or
think So I think two answers. One, I think that would be great to have kind of like a regular communication where we, talk over what's important, and what we believe is important individually, and see how we can move things there. The second part of the answer is actually I do think it's happening in the ecosystem. It's just kind of like within Web3 Foundation, within Parity, and you can see a little bit on the forum, like in the different posts about what is happening. Um, uh, I think it would be nice to, I guess, make it wider known in the ecosystem. It's kind of contained. You have to know where to look for it now, but that kind of direction you can see out there in the background.
got it.
But it's not really filtering into open wealth, let's say. It's just kind of in a more contained space.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's not a decision that can be made in this meeting and right now. So we can have a further discussions after this conversation. And for today's broadcast, let's call it an end. And thank you, every guest, for sharing your insight on the DAOs. And thank you for the audience for being here and be supportive to PokeWorld. And we will continually seeking the better solutions for the OpenGov for DAOs, and systematically and philosophically. So hope you can follow all the guests and follow PokeWorld to stay updated for everything happening in Polkadot ecosystem. And see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
See you
Thank you
guys.
very much.
All right.
Okay. And